Hey guys, it's Pure Venom here, bringing you another video. So I told you that I was going to do a comparison on the Intel 1TB 760p and then also the Inland Premium drive. As you guys can see, I have pricing currently right now. This is through Micro Center, so other places may vary. Also, these prices may vary in the future. I'm just using current pricing, and also I'm using Micro Center because that's really the only place that you can get the Inland Premium drives. So I'd rather use their pricing to compete with, to show competition and also show what's a better value. So as you can see, the Intel 760Ps, those are looking to be about $183, whereas the Inland right now is roughly about $105 for a terabyte. These do fluctuate in pricing. I've seen the premium drives all the way down to $95, and I've seen the Intels typically hover right about $170, $180-ish. So they're fairly close to their pricing right now. But let's get out of there and let's actually start talking about some interesting information. So they both are still using the NVMe 1.3 spec, so there's no differences in that. The major differences are going to be the controllers that they use. So Intel, of course, is Intel, so they'll be using their own memory controller, what handles everything for the communication. And then also Inland's drive is going to be using the Phison controller. So performance is going to be on par with any reference Phison or anything that's using the Phison controller that's similar. Once again, I am using the older firmware for these representations. Really, there's no major differences between the two. I've tested them both. It was mainly more thermals were the differences that I was able to see between them. But I do have a good amount of data written to both of them. Like I was saying, I use the Inland one for my laptop currently, and then the Intel one I actually use occasionally as a game drive and then also as virtual machines, just because I load up Linux every so often for just some testing purposes and things like that. But they are NVMe 3.0 times 4, so there's no issues on that front. So temperature-wise, I know I'm going to have some questions on that side. So the Inland drives, like I said, without the thermal pads, they're typically almost TJ Max. So they're hitting the thermal throttling roughly about 70 to 75 degrees. Just so I can make comparisons evenly, I do have a thermal pad on my laptop there. So I'm able to get temperatures right between, on average, between about 50 and 60 C. Once again, that's all depending on what I'm doing with the laptop, whether if I'm doing sustained writes to it or if I'm doing a little bit more than that. For the Intel drive, typically they hover right around 50, 55 C, so they are thermally better. I don't know if that's a difference within the firmware or the way that they're using their controller. That's something where I would have to dig more into, but at least currently I can tell you, temperature-wise, Intel does do a better job being underneath a heat sink or a thermal pad. So let's get to the Atto benchmarks. Atto pretty much gives the general performance of the drives, so I could see consistency with larger block files or just standard file sizes that I'm using as a transfer. So typically NVMe drives, they don't do great with small block sizes. They will perform better when they start getting into the larger block sizes just because it's more amount of data. Typically, I tell people NVMe drives are like fat kids in chocolate. They'll eat as much as they can until they explode. A little bit of a fun joke. I'm a big guy, so I'm allowed to make that joke. But currently right now, as you can see, speed-wise, Intel is very consistent across the board with what they represent in their own spec listing. So they typically say right around 3,200 reads by roughly about 1,600 writes. Atto is at least showing a close reference to what Intel is speccing for theirs for the sequential reads and writes. Now, since Inland uses the Phison controller, what's similar to the MP510. We are going to see better speeds, and that's mainly one of the big things with the Phison controller. Intel's never been known for their speed advantage. They've been known for their reliability. and the quality of flash memory that they typically use. So there's the give and take. Intel has been doing it for quite some time. Inland has gone to a reputable manufacturer. I can at least figure that one out since they are using very similar drives to the MP510. So quality-wise, I would say they're roughly on par, but if you wanted a faster and a better performing drive, currently right now, what at least Atto is showing, the reads and write performance, the Inland drive just pretty much crushes in the write performance. The read performances, I would say, they're roughly within average of each other. I wouldn't say 200, what is it? Yeah, roughly about 200 megabytes difference between the two. I mean, that's not going to be terribly noticeable, but the write performance is almost double. So I will definitely go and say the Phison controller is doing better. Now, once again, these all could be dependent on, how they want to do their firmware controllers and then also the read-write cycles. Because, like, I have, two Inland drives and two Intel drives. But the 750 Intel drive pretty much just wipes the floor with everything because it's the half-height card, so you are getting better thermal performance. And, of course, Crystal Dismark, just to show for general performance. Now, this is where Intel actually shows a little bit more muscle. It's typically going to be in their 4K writes, and reads and writes, I should say. So it's roughly about almost double to what the Inland drive's offering, but once again, their sequential reads and writes typically aren't terrible. That's where the Inland drive is mainly performing at. And once again, these numbers here are going to be roughly about the same as what you would see with an MP510 from Corsair. Plus or minus, depending on what they want to do for their firmware. But as you can see, the Intel drive is offering more consistency and also at higher file volume. They are doing better with. So these drives typically will compete very similar to the Samsungs in the 4K read and write cycles. In the sequentials, Samsung, once again, they're the top dog in this atmosphere. They're going to be pretty much the kings of the court. So I can at least tell you, nobody's going to really be competing with Samsung, at least in this space, when you're looking for reliability and also the most performance per dollar. Once again, I could throw Samsung numbers up. Everybody does them. The thing is that I don't feel like I need to do that because we all know in the tech space that Samsung does a really good job with their 970 Evo Pluses, 970 Pros, 960 Pros, so on and so forth. So that's where I'll go and say price to performance. These drives do a very good job to compete with Samsung. I would say if you were looking at a 1 terabyte drive from Intel to Samsung, I would say, take a little bit less of the read performance, but you're still getting a very similar drive because everybody's using TLC on this. I believe Samsung uses a little bit different for their Pro drives. I know for their Evos, they use the TLC. But the big thing is that we're looking at these two drives, and for roughly about a $70 difference, I would personally be telling you the Inland drive is actually a really good quality drive. Now, it doesn't have the warranty behind it like what Intel offers. Typically, it's a 5-year warranty with most of their higher-end NVMe drives. Right now, Inland is currently only offering a 3-year, but once again, it's a quality drive. I would recommend this to anybody just because cost of performance, they do a great job. I've been testing them out for quite some time, and I'm not using customers to figure that out with the numbers. Like I said, I do video editing, photo editing. I should say working on the photo editing portion for, the thumbnails and stuff. And then also I do software development. So testing these drives out with the development, compiling definitely does help. But I would say for the $70 difference, put that into a graphics card, put that into something different, put it into a better chip. But currently right now, Inland's definitely giving everybody a run for their money. They did just recently release a 2 terabyte NVMe drive, which showing similar performance. Once again, I don't have unlimited funds to be testing out all this stuff, so I will have to wait to see how those perform, but I would expect them to be very similar to what we're looking at here. And cost-wise, those are typically going to be right around $225, whereas most other 2 terabytes are like $300 or $400. So there's even a larger price gap. But Micro Center, they did a very good job with the drive. They sourced from a very quality manufacturer, I can say. But truthfully, if it came down to my physical purchase, I would recommend picking up the inland drive for the money savings. Now, of course, like always, if you guys do have questions or concerns, please fire them down below. Also, if you would like, please hit the like, subscribe button, because it does help me out. But hopefully I'll be seeing you guys next time. We'll be talking about, maybe talking about a little bit of Samsung DeX. I'm still currently working on a little bit of the bugs and things like that, just so I can work that out for video purposes. But I'll see you guys next time.